The NFL draft has come and gone, meaning it is finally time for the real fantasy football offseason. Hide your kids, hide your wife, let's get those rankings tight and, hopefully win some freaking money while we do it. Today's goal is to accomplish just that in the form of identifying the key late round wide receivers that we feel most comfortable throwing darts at in the year 2024. Now, the three main ingredients of this that I would like to focus on are: one, this wide receiver needs to have a true, clear-cut starting job in three wide receiver sets. Two, they should be playing with ideally a good to great professional quarterback under center. Certainly seems to help matters. And three, ideally this wide receiver is either, hey, someone that has a history of producing at the position, that's kind of what we're looking for in Fantasyland, or B, has a sort of high-end draft capital to their name to make us believe there could be bigger and better things down the road, even if they haven't shown it at the professional level just yet. So yeah, let's get after it. Up first, we have a pair of Arizona Cardinals wide receivers. No, not number 4 overall pick Marvin Harrison Jr., but flanking him in starting 3 wide receiver sets should be rising second-year talent Michael Wilson, currently coming off the board as the wide receiver 69. Nice in early ADP. And also Greg Dortch, who's going well outside the top 90 wide receivers over at Underdog Fantasy. So, hey, with Kyler Murray under center, one of the few quarterbacks in the NFL with legit 4,000 plus yard and 30 plus passing touchdown upside, it would make sense if more guys than just Marv and Trey McBride are able to boom on occasion. Again, this is an offense that should be ascending. Last year when Kyler Murray was under center from weeks 10 through 18, this was a top 10 group in EPA per play, yards per play, and touchdown drive rate. So while I'm not expecting Wilson or Dortch to exactly take over this passing game, we're talking about starting complementary options in an attack that actually could be up there with the league's top 10 or so overall offenses. So in Dortch's case, he is truly just a late round, maybe even last round dart. But yeah, do not underestimate Dortch. Yeah, I guess we'll roll with that nickname. His potential to be, again, a yak superstar and take over that Rondale Moore starting slot role. And even if you don't want to take my word for it, why not millionaire himself, Pat Kerrane, who was showing off his first Best Ball Mania 5 squad over on the old Twitter streets. And he did, in fact, use one of his last picks on Greg Dortch himself. And then for Wilson, I know he didn't put up the biggest numbers last year, but did you kind of notice what he was dealing with during the first 9 weeks of the season? He had America unironically thrilled with the Joshua Dobbs experience. What a time to be alive. But through it all, Wilson at 6'1", 216 pounds did show off some of the route running ability and contested catch goodness that had people excited about the former day 2 pick in the first place. So again, not necessarily building blocks, but when we can get seemingly talented starting wide receivers and really good offenses available this late in the draft, sign me up. Up next, Ravens wide receiver 1? Okay, he's probably the 2 behind Zay Flowers, but at least the lead guy on the outside, Rashod Bateman. Now, hear me out. We are no longer having to look at Bateman as his boomer bust wide receiver 4 or someone that you actually have to use a top 50, even top 60 pick on to acquire in fantasy drafts. Right now, guys, Lamar Jackson's lead outside wide receiver, the wide receiver 79 over at Underdog Fantasy, fresh off getting a 2-year extension from the Ravens that could be worth up to $16.75 million. No more Odell Beckham Jr. Yes, I do think Mark Andrews and probably Zay Flowers are going to be the number 1 target getters in this offense. That said, let's give Rashod Bateman a clean bill of health for once and see what happens. Reminder, this guy is still just 24 years old. His 2021 season had a preseason groin issue that led to things starting off on IR. 2022 was sadly undone by a season-ending Lisfranc injury. And hell, even in 2023, the man tweaked his hamstring in week 3 and had to play through it the rest of the year. So I understand the targets never exactly came to fruition down the stretch, but if you were grinding that all 22 late in the 2023 season, you would have seen that Bateman was creating plenty of separation and looked at least closer to the part of the guy that we thought he was going to be coming out of Minnesota all those years ago. So again, don't hate the player, hate the ADP. And I think Bateman possesses some nice boom or bust value, again, at a very affordable price tag. Speaking of underperforming to this point, former first round picks, where's the love for Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams? Still, just 23 years old. He turned 23 in March. I mean, Jameson Williams now finally seemingly entering the season healthy. Lest we forget, his rookie year, he was still recovering from that torn ACL that was suffered in the SEC championship game. And then last year, he suffered a grade 2 hamstring strain in training camp. My man has never played a professional football game in September at this point in his career. So maybe, just maybe, the injury gods will finally chill the hell out and let JMO go out there and be what he was put on this planet to be, a freaking field stretching maestro that puts the living fear of God into cornerbacks of all shapes and sizes across from him. Now, I know we didn't see exactly Jameson take over the offense or the league for that matter during the final 3 quarters of last season, but when you do remove Josh Reynolds from the equation, 64 targets last year and a 70% snap rate, which was higher than anyone other than our one true sun god, it does make sense that Jameson Williams could combine good health, a full-time starting role, and more just confidence in an offense for the first time of his career, because yeah, I kind of remember him making a few pretty damn big plays in a little thing called the NFC Championship the last time we saw him on a football field. So priced as just a wide receiver 50, I love the potential for Jameson Williams to finally live up to some of that first round hype, and conveniently, we can draft him pretty much cheaper than ever. Now, on the opposite end of the draft capital spectrum, we have another rising third-year wide receiver, but this one was undrafted back in the day, but who cares when you happen to lead the entire NFL in yards per target over these last 2 seasons with a minimum of 100 targets? I'll give you a second. Guess. 3, 2, 1. You got it. Rashid Shaheed, Saints wide receiver 2 behind Chris Olave. We get it, but yeah, we're here. We made it. The Saints added essentially 0 competition throughout the free agency and the draft, leaving them with a projected starting 3 wide receiver core of Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and probably A.T. Perry at this point. So with Shaheed, again, mentioned the efficiency on a per target basis, but truly my mans can do it all out there. He's been lethal when the Saints have decided to use him in the jet sweep game, and yeah, happened to earn first team All-Pro honors as a kick returner last season. So I know I'm stretching the limits here a little bit of a good to great quarterback, including Derek Carr in here. That said, over the course of his career, we have seen guys like Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, Olave to an extent last year, all put up some pretty solid fantasy numbers. I don't think Devontae Adams was complaining too much when he scored all those touchdowns during his one season with Derek Carr back in 2022. So Rashid Shaheed, currently going off the board as the wide receiver 59, fits the bill of an ascending talent who has proven to be efficient with his opportunities, finally getting that chance to have the full-time job. Sign me up. And last but certainly not least, I mean, seriously, this might be my favorite pick of anyone I've mentioned just in terms of the actual value we're getting here. Rams wide receiver 3, Demarcus Robinson. Yes, he's a little bit long in the tooth at this point. He will be turning 30 in September, but in case you guys missed it, we saw Robinson actually take over as a legit number 3 option in this passing game down the stretch of last season. Specifically in his final 5 regular season games, we saw Robinson rip off PPR wide receiver 20, 23, 25, 15, and another top 25 finish back in week 17. So throughout it all, we actually saw him display some legit ability to get open in the red zone and also some separation ability on the outside, which enabled Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp to spend more time in the slot. With Robinson, there was always going to be some, risk with getting too heavy on him because we could have seen the Rams use some free agency money on the position or a day 1 or day 2 draft pick at wide receiver, but they didn't. 0 free agent wide receivers added, and they waited all the way until round 6 to add any actual competition to this wide receiver room. So again, I'm not expecting Robinson to be overtaking Puka or Cooper Kupp anytime soon. That said, he really does seem to be the top option behind them, particularly with Tyler Higbee likely missing the first chunk of next season, recovering from that late ACL injury. And yeah, to see Robinson going as the wide receiver 89 off boards and outside the top 200 overall picks certainly seems like a guy who has a much higher ceiling than the absolute, non-existent draft capital we have to use to acquire his services in the first place. Again, to be clear, these are late round wide receivers. As fun as it is to talk up the Justin Jeffersons and the Marvin Harrison Jrs of the world, yeah, I think it's a little bit more important to try to go out there and try to find gems in these later rounds when everyone else is just, digging through that trash. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Holler in the comments with any other late round darts you're currently really feeling yourself when you're taking. And yeah, enjoy drafting. We're here. Fantasy football offseason. Truly a great day to be great. And you guys have a great rest of your day accordingly.